Little boy ran to the bikers, crying, "They took my sister." What they did shocked everyone. The morning sun cast long shadows across the modest streets of Moreno Valley, California, where the Martinez family lived in a small ranch-style house painted a faded yellow. The neighborhood was a patchwork of working-class families, chain-link fences, and yards decorated with a mix of pride and necessity. Palm trees swayed gently in the warm September breeze, their fronds rustling like whispered secrets. Inside the Martinez home, 8-year-old Tommy was sprawled on the worn living room carpet, his Spider-Man action figure battling an invisible army of villains. His sister, Emma, 12 years old, with dark hair pulled into a ponytail, sat cross-legged on the couch, thumbs moving rapidly across her phone screen as she texted her friend about weekend plans. "Mom, can we go to the park today?" Tommy called out, not looking up from his toys. Maria Martinez emerged from the kitchen, wiping her hands on a dish towel. At 34, she carried the weight of single parenthood in the lines around her eyes, but her smile remained warm. She worked double shifts at the local diner to keep the lights on and food on the table since her husband Daniel had been deployed overseas with the army 8 months ago. "Maybe later, mijo. I have to work the lunch shift today. Mrs. Peterson next door will watch you both," Maria said, tucking a strand of dark hair behind her ear. "But, Mom," Tommy began to protest. "Tommy, you know I have to work," Maria said gently but firmly. "We talked about this, but I promise, tomorrow we'll do something special, just the three of us." Emma looked up from her phone. "Mom, can I go to Jessica's house instead? Her mom said she could pick me up." Maria hesitated. She didn't like having her children separated, especially on her work days. But Emma had been responsible lately, and Jessica's family lived only a few blocks away in a nicer part of the neighborhood. "Okay, but you stay there until I get home. No wandering around, and keep your phone on," Maria said. "I will, I promise," Emma said, already texting Jessica's mom. An hour later, Maria kissed both her children goodbye. Emma waited on the front porch for Jessica's mother's silver Honda, while Tommy reluctantly trudged next door to Mrs. Peterson's house, a kind elderly widow who smelled of lavender and always had cookies. The Honda pulled up at 11:30 a.m. Emma hopped in, waving at Tommy, who watched from Mrs. Peterson's window. Jessica, also 12, with blonde hair and braces, immediately started chattering about a movie they wanted to watch. "Hi, Mrs. Chen," Emma said politely to Jessica's mother. "Hello, Emma. Buckle up, sweetie," Mrs. Chen said, checking her mirrors before pulling away from the curb. They drove through the quiet streets, passing the local elementary school, where both girls used to attend before moving to middle school, the corner store with its faded awning, and the gas station where teenagers sometimes hung out. The neighborhoods gradually shifted from Emma's working-class area to Jessica's more suburban street, with better-maintained lawns and newer cars in the driveways. Mrs. Chen pulled into their driveway at 12:15 p.m. "I'm going to run some errands, girls. Emma, I'll be back by 4 to take you home. There's lunch in the fridge. Stay in the house, understand?" "Yes, Mom," Jessica said, already pulling Emma toward the front door. The girls spent the next 2 hours watching movies, painting their nails, and talking about school crushes. The afternoon felt endless in the way that only carefree Saturday afternoons can feel when you're 12. At 2:30 p.m., Jessica's phone buzzed. She read the message and frowned. "My mum says she's stuck in traffic. She won't be back until 5 or maybe later," Jessica said. "She wants to know if you can stay longer." Emma checked her own phone. Her mother wouldn't be home from work until 6 anyway. "Let me text my mom." Maria responded quickly. "That's fine, mija, but be home by 6:30. Love you." At 4:09 p.m., Emma started feeling restless. "I should probably start heading home soon. My mom likes me home before dark." "My mom's still not back yet," Jessica said, checking her phone again. "She says she's still about 30 minutes away." "I can walk. It's not that far," Emma said. She'd walked the route before with her mother and felt confident she knew the way. "Are you sure? My mom said you should wait," Jessica said uncertainly. "It's fine. It's still light out." and I know the way. Tell your mum thank you for me, Emma said, gathering her backpack. Jessica walked her friend to the door. Text me when you get home. I will, Emma promised. Emma started walking down Jessica's quiet suburban street, her phone in her hand, earbuds in her ears, listening to her favorite playlist. The sun was still relatively high, casting a golden late-afternoon glow over everything. She felt confident and independent, walking through neighborhoods she'd been through many times before. She turned onto Valencia Street, a busier road that connected Jessica's neighborhood to her own. This part of the walk always had more traffic, more commercial buildings and fewer residential homes. Emma kept to the sidewalk, occasionally glancing at her phone. A grey van pulled up slowly beside her. The side door was already partially open. Emma noticed it in her peripheral vision and instinctively moved farther from the curb, her mother's warnings echoing in her mind. Never talk to strangers, never get close to vehicles. The van kept pace with her. A man's voice called out, "Excuse me, miss, we're looking for a lost dog. Have you seen a small brown terrier?" Emma didn't respond, walking faster now, her heart beginning to pound. She'd learned in school never to help adults who approached children asking for help. Adults should ask other adults. "Hey, we really need help," the voice said again, more insistent. Emma broke into a jog. The van accelerated slightly. In one terrifying instant, two men jumped out. One grabbed her from behind, his hand clamping over her mouth before she could scream. Her phone clattered to the sidewalk as she was lifted off her feet and thrown into the van. The entire abduction took less than 10 seconds. The van door slammed shut and the vehicle sped away, leaving only Emma's phone on the sidewalk, its screen cracked from the fall, music still playing through the earbuds. Back at Mrs. Peterson's house, Tommy was growing bored. He'd helped her water her garden, eaten 3 chocolate chip cookies, and played with her ancient cat, Mr. Whiskers. At 5 p.m., he asked if he could go home to play in his own yard. Mrs. Peterson, trusting and kind, but also slightly forgetful at 76, said, "I suppose that's okay, dear, but stay right in your yard, and I'll check on you in a bit." Tommy ran home, grabbed his soccer ball from the garage, and started kicking it around the front yard. He was practicing his dribbling, imagining himself scoring the winning goal in the World Cup, when a police cruiser pulled up to his house at 5:45 p.m. 2 officers got out, their expressions serious. One was a tall black man with a kind face, Officer James Walker. The other was a shorter Hispanic woman, Officer Rosa Gutierrez. "Son, are your parents home?" Officer Walker asked. Tommy's stomach dropped. He'd learned from television that police at your door usually meant bad news. "My mom's at work. She'll be home soon. Is something wrong?" The officers exchanged glances. Officer Gutierrez knelt down to Tommy's level. "What's your name, sweetheart?" "Tommy. Tommy Martinez. Is my mom okay? My dad's in the army." "Your mother is fine," Officer Walker said. "Is there another adult we can contact? Do you have a sister named Emma?" Tommy's blood ran cold. "Yes, Emma. She's at her friend's house. Why? What happened?" Before they could answer, Mrs. Peterson came hurrying over, having seen the police car. "Officers, I'm watching this boy. What's going on?" Officer Gutierrez stood up. "Ma'am, we found a phone on Valencia Street with the emergency contact information for Maria Martinez. The phone appears to belong to Emma Martinez. We need to contact the mother immediately." "Oh, dear God," Mrs. Peterson whispered, her hand going to her mouth. Tommy felt like the ground was tilting under his feet. "Where's Emma? Where's my sister?" "We're trying to find her, son," Officer Walker said. "We need you to be very brave right now." The next hour was a blur of confusion and terror for Tommy. Officer Gutierrez stayed with him and Mrs. Peterson while Officer Walker contacted Maria at the diner. Tommy watched Mrs. Peterson's face crumble as she talked on the phone, her free hand clutching her chest. Maria arrived home at 6:30 p.m., her face pale and streaked with tears, still wearing her diner uniform. She rushed to Tommy and pulled him into a crushing embrace. "Mum, where's Emma?" Tommy asked, his voice small and frightened. "We're going to find her, baby. We're going to find her," Maria said, but her voice broke on the words. The house filled with police officers over the next few hours. Detectives asked questions. Phones rang constantly. Tommy heard words like abduction, witness, and Amber Alert. He didn't fully understand what was happening, but he understood enough to know that something terrible had happened to Emma, and no one knew where she was. By 10 p.m., Tommy was exhausted but couldn't sleep. He lay in his bed, staring at the glow-in-the-dark stars on his ceiling that Emma had helped him put up 2 years ago. He could hear his mother crying in the living room, talking to the detectives. That night, Tommy made a promise to himself. He would find his sister. He didn't know how, but he would find her. Sunday morning arrived with cruel normalcy. The sun still rose over Moreno Valley, birds still sang, and the world continued as if nothing had changed. But for the Martinez family, everything had changed. Tommy had barely slept. He'd finally drifted off around 3 a.m., only to wake up at 6 a.m. with tears on his face from a nightmare. He stumbled into the living room to find his mother in the same clothes from yesterday, sitting at the kitchen table with Detective Harrison, a middle-aged man with grey temples and tired eyes. "Any news?" Tommy asked quietly. Maria looked up, her eyes red and swollen. "Come here, mijo." Tommy climbed into her lap, even though he usually thought he was too big for that now. Right now he needed his mother, and she needed him. Detective Harrison's phone buzzed. He read the message and sighed. "Mrs. Martinez, I need to be honest with you. The first 24 hours are critical in cases like this. We have the Amber Alert active, we're checking surveillance cameras along Valencia Street, and we're interviewing everyone in the area. But what?" Maria asked, her voice sharp with desperation. "The van has no license plate visible in the footage we've found. It's a common model. We're doing everything we can, but we need you to prepare for—" "Don't," Maria said firmly. "Don't tell me to prepare for anything except bringing my daughter home." Detective Harrison nodded respectfully. "We won't stop looking, Mom. I promise you that." After the detective left, Tommy made a decision. He couldn't just sit here waiting. He was only 8, but he was smart. He knew the neighborhood. He could help. "Mom, I'm going to go outside for a bit," Tommy said. "No, absolutely not. You stay where I can see you," Maria said immediately. "Mom, I'll just be in the front yard." "Please, I can't just sit here," Tommy pleaded. Maria looked at her son's determined face and saw so much of his father in him. Finally, she nodded. "Front yard only. Do not leave my sight." Tommy went outside and sat on the front steps. He stared at the street as if by sheer will he could make Emma appear. Neighbors walked by, some offering sympathetic looks, others hurrying past with uncomfortable expressions. A local news van had been parked across the street since early morning. At 10 a.m., a sound rumbled down the quiet street that made everyone turn their heads. 6 motorcycles rolled slowly past the Martinez house, their engines creating a deep, powerful growl that vibrated through the air. The riders were big men wearing leather vests with patches, their bikes gleaming chrome and custom paint. Tommy watched them pass, noticing the patches on their backs. Road Warriors MC, Riverside County Chapter. The motorcycles pulled into the parking lot of the corner store a block away. The riders dismounted, some lighting cigarettes, others stretching their legs. Tommy stared at them. He'd seen bikers before, of course. They sometimes stopped at his mother's diner. Some people in the neighborhood viewed them with suspicion, crossing the street when they saw them coming. But his father had always told him, "Don't judge people by how they look, son. Judge them by what they do." An idea began forming in Tommy's mind. It was probably a stupid idea. His mother would definitely say no. But Tommy thought about Emma, about how scared she must be, and the idea grew stronger. He stood up and started walking toward the corner store. "Tommy, where are you going?" Maria called from inside the house. "Just to the store, Mom. I can see it from here," Tommy called back. "You stay where I can see you," Maria said, coming to the door. Tommy walked quickly, his heart pounding. He didn't have a plan, really. He just knew he needed to do something. The bikers were standing in a cluster by their motorcycles, talking and laughing about something. They were big men, most with beards, tattoos covering their arms, wearing leather and denim. To an 8-year-old boy, they looked intimidating and powerful. As Tommy approached, the nearest biker noticed him. This was Marcus Bear Thompson, the chapter president, a black man in his early 40s with a graying beard and kind eyes that contrasted with his intimidating size. "Hey, little man, you okay?" Bear asked, noticing the boy's red-rimmed eyes and desperate expression. Tommy opened his mouth to speak, but suddenly all the fear and grief of the past 18 hours overwhelmed him. Tears started streaming down his face. "Whoa, hey, what's wrong, kid?" Another biker stepped forward. This was Jake Wrench Morrison, the club's mechanic, a white man in his 30s covered in tattoos, with a gentler voice than his appearance suggested. "They took my sister," Tommy sobbed, the words bursting out of him. "Yesterday they took Emma and the police can't find her and my mum is crying and I don't know what to do." The laughter and casual conversation among the bikers stopped immediately. 6 pairs of eyes focused on the crying boy with sudden, intense attention. Bear knelt down so he was eye-level with Tommy. "Slow down, son. Take a breath. What's your name?" "Tommy Martinez," Tommy said, wiping his eyes with his sleeve. "Okay, Tommy. I'm Bear. Tell me exactly what happened," Bear said, his voice calm and steady. Through tears and hitching breaths, Tommy explained. Emma walking home from her friend's house, the phone found on Valencia Street, the police, the Amber Alert, everything. The bikers listened in silence. When Tommy finished, they exchanged glances. These men, members of the Road Warriors MC, were not the criminal stereotype some people imagined. Yes, they rode motorcycles and looked tough, but this particular club was known for charity work, community events, and veteran support. Most of the members were veterans themselves, and they had a strict code, protect the innocent, especially children. "Which house is yours?" Bear asked. Tommy pointed to the yellow house up the street. Bear stood up and looked at his brothers. "Rico, stay with the kid. The rest of you with me." Maria was standing on the front porch now, having seen Tommy talking to the bikers. Her face showed confusion and concern as 6 large bikers walked up her driveway, her small son trailing behind them. "Mrs. Martinez?" Bear asked respectfully, removing his sunglasses. "Who are you? What do you want with my son?" Maria asked, positioning herself protectively. "Ma'am, my name is Marcus Thompson. These are my brothers from the Road Warriors MC. Your son just told us what happened to your daughter. We'd like to help," Bear said. Maria's expression shifted from defensive to confused. "Help? How?" Another biker stepped forward. This was Carlos Nomad Rodriguez, a Mexican-American veteran with a scarred face and a gentle demeanor. "Mrs. Martinez, we have resources the police don't have. We have connections throughout the county, people who see things the law doesn't see. We have time, we have bikes, and we have manpower. If your daughter is anywhere in Riverside County, we can help find her." "I don't understand," Maria said. "Why would you help us? You don't even know us." Bear looked uncomfortable for a moment, then spoke honestly. "Ma'am, most of us in this club are veterans. Some of us are fathers. We all know what it's like to see innocents hurt, and we all took oaths to protect people. Those oaths don't expire just because we're not in uniform anymore." A third biker, this one younger with red hair and freckles, spoke up. This was Danny Kid Walsh, the newest member of the club. "Plus, we really hate the kind of scum who hurt kids, like really hate them." "Language, kid," Bear said mildly, nodding toward Tommy. "Sorry," Danny said sheepishly. Maria looked at these men, these rough-looking bikers who had just appeared in her life like something out of a movie. Every maternal instinct told her to be cautious, but desperation and something in their eyes, genuine concern, made her decide to trust them. "Okay," Maria said. "Okay, what do you need from me?" For the next hour, Bear and his brothers sat at Maria's kitchen table. They asked detailed questions, took notes and made phone calls. They got a description of Emma, photos from Maria's phone, details about the timeline, everything the police had already documented. But they also asked different questions. What gangs operated in the area? Were there any abandoned buildings or houses where someone might hide? What about people in the neighborhood who seemed suspicious? While the adults talked, Tommy sat on the couch with Danny, who'd been designated to keep the kid company. "You were brave coming to talk to us," Danny said. "I was scared," Tommy admitted. "Being brave doesn't mean you're not scared. It means you do what needs to be done even when you're scared," Danny said. "That's something my dad taught me. He was a Marine." "My dad's in the army," Tommy said. "He's in Afghanistan." "Does he know what happened?" Danny asked. "We called his base. They said they'd try to get word to him, but he's on a mission somewhere," Tommy said, fresh tears welling up. "My dad would know what to do. He always knows what to do." Danny put a hand on Tommy's shoulder. "Hey, we're going to find your sister. I promise you that." In the kitchen, Bear was wrapping up. "Okay, Mrs. Martinez, here's what we're going to do. We're putting the word out to every club, every contact, every street person we know in this county. We're printing flyers with Emma's photo and our contact number. We're going to canvass every street, every alley, every place where someone might be holding her. The police are doing their job, but we're going to do things our way." "I can't afford to pay you," Maria said quietly. Bear looked offended. "Ma'am, we don't want your money. We want to bring your daughter home. That's payment enough." Maria's eyes filled with tears again. "Thank you. Thank you so much." Bear stood up. "We'll be in touch. Keep your phone on. And Mrs. Martinez, don't give up hope. We've pulled off harder miracles than this." As the bikers prepared to leave, Tommy ran up to Bear. "Can I come with you?" "No, son. You need to stay here with your mom," Bear said gently. "But I want to help find Emma," Tommy protested. Bear knelt down again. "You already helped. You were brave enough to ask for help. That's the most important thing. Now you need to be here for your mom. Can you do that?" Tommy nodded reluctantly. Bear pulled a card from his wallet and handed it to Tommy. "This has my number on it. If you think of anything at all that might help, you call me directly, day or night. You're part of this team now, understand?" Tommy took the card like it was a precious treasure. "I understand." The bikers mounted their motorcycles. As they started their engines, neighbors came out of their houses, watching with curiosity and some with concern. The road warriors rolled out, the sound of their engines echoing down the street like a promise or a warning. Maria put her arm around Tommy as they watched the bikers disappear around the corner. "Do you think they'll really help?" Tommy asked. "I think," Maria said slowly, "that sometimes help comes from the most unexpected places." By Sunday afternoon, the Road Warriors MC had mobilized a search effort that rivaled the official police investigation. Bear had made calls to every allied motorcycle club in Southern California, and the response was immediate and overwhelming. Clubs from Los Angeles, San Diego, Orange County, and beyond offered their support. Bikers who'd never met Emma Martinez were now invested in finding her. The Road Warriors had established a temporary command center at their clubhouse, a large warehouse-style building on the industrial edge of Moreno Valley. The clubhouse, usually a place for parties and brotherhood, had been transformed. A large map of Riverside County covered one wall, with areas marked off in grids for systematic searching. Computers displayed surveillance footage obtained through unofficial channels. Phones rang constantly with tips and updates. Bear stood in front of the map, marking another section. Around him, more than 30 bikers from various clubs had shown up to help. They were organized into teams, each assigned to specific areas: commercial districts, residential neighborhoods, industrial zones, and rural areas on the county's edges. "Listen up," Bear called out, and the room fell silent. "We're looking for a gray cargo van, probably a Ford or Chevy, late 2000s model, no visible plates. We're looking for Emma Martinez, 12 years old, 5'2", brown hair, brown eyes. Last seen wearing a blue hoodie and jeans." He pointed to the map. The abduction happened here on Valencia Street at approximately 4 p.m. yesterday. That gives the kidnappers almost 24 hours head start. But they can't have gone too far. They're local, or they wouldn't have been trolling that neighborhood. They're somewhere in this county. Carlos spoke up. I've got informants in 3 of the major gangs. None of them know anything about this. They're as pissed as we are. Turns out even gang members don't like child kidnappers. They've promised to keep their eyes open. Jake added, I talked to my contacts at several auto body shops. If that van was damaged during the snatch, or if they're trying to change its appearance, I'll hear about it. Good, Bear said. Now, we divide and conquer. Team 1, you're covering the motels and cheap hotels on Highway 60. Team 2, abandoned buildings in the old industrial district. Team 3, rural properties on the east side. Team 4, you're checking with homeless encampments and street people. They see everything. A biker from another club, a Hispanic woman named Rosa from the Desert Riders, raised her hand. What about the dark web and online trafficking? That's usually where these things lead. Bear's expression darkened. We have someone working that angle. If this goes where we think it might be going, we need to move fast. Back at the Martinez house, Detective Harrison had returned with an update. Maria and Tommy sat on the couch, holding hands. We've reviewed all available surveillance footage. We have 3 partial views of the van, but nothing clear enough to get a plate or identify the occupants. We're checking registered vehicles matching that description within a 100-mile radius, but that's thousands of vehicles, Detective Harrison said. What about witnesses? Maria asked. We have one possible witness, a postal worker who was on Valencia Street around that time. He remembers seeing a grey van slow down near where we found Emma's phone, but he didn't think anything of it at the time. He couldn't identify anyone inside the vehicle, the detective said. So you have nothing, Maria said flatly. We have leads we're pursuing, Detective Harrison said defensively. Mrs. Martinez, I understand you've been contacted by some members of a local motorcycle club. Maria tensed. Yes, they've offered to help search for Emma. I would advise caution with that. These individuals, while they may have good intentions, are not trained law enforcement. They could compromise the investigation, or even put Emma in more danger if they— With all due respect, Detective, Maria interrupted, her voice hard. Right now, those individuals seem to be doing more than sitting around telling me about the thousands of vans they need to check. If they want to help, I'm not going to stop them. Detective Harrison sighed. I understand your frustration. Just please keep us informed if they find anything. We need to coordinate any rescue attempt properly. After the detective left, Tommy's phone buzzed. It was a text from Bear. Any luck remembering anything else about people Emma mentioned or places she talked about? Even small details help. Tommy thought hard. He'd been trying to remember everything Emma had talked about in the weeks before she was taken. Most of it was typical 12-year-old stuff. School drama, friends, crushes, music. Then he remembered something. Mom! Maria jumped, startled. What? Emma said something weird a couple weeks ago. She said there was a van that kept driving past her school. She thought it was creepy because it was there 3 days in a row, just parked across the street, Tommy said. Did she describe it? Maria asked urgently. She said it was grey and ugly and had a dent on the side, Tommy said. Maria immediately called Detective Harrison. Tommy texted Bear. Within an hour, both the police and the bikers were reviewing surveillance footage from Emma's middle school. Sure enough, there was a grey van parked across the street during dismissal time on 3 separate days, 2 weeks before the abduction. On the second day, the footage captured something crucial, a temporary license plate in the window. The number was partially visible. Detective Harrison ran it through the DMV database. It's a dealer temp tag from a used car lot in Riverside. The tag was issued 3 weeks ago for a 2008 Dodge Caravan, grey, purchased by a John Smith with a fake address and ID. What about the dealership's surveillance? Maria asked. We're getting it now, Detective Harrison said. Meanwhile, Jake had gotten the same information through his own channels and was already at the dealership, talking to the owner, a nervous man named Rick, who seemed very eager to cooperate when Jake and 3 other large bikers walked into his office. "Look, I don't know anything about any kidnapping," Rick said, hands up defensively. "We're not accusing you," Jake said calmly. "We just need to see your security footage from 3 weeks ago." "The cops already took a copy," Rick said. "Then it won't hurt to show us too," Jake said, his tone making it clear this wasn't a request. Rick pulled up the footage. There on the screen was a man purchasing the van. He was white, average height, wearing a baseball cap and sunglasses that obscured most of his face. But when he turned to leave, the camera caught something. A distinctive tattoo on his forearm, a snake coiled around a skull. Jake snapped a photo of the screen with his phone. "You ever see this guy before?" "No, never. He paid cash, used a fake ID, and left. That's all I know, I swear," Rick said. Jake sent the photo to Bear. "We need to identify this tattoo." Back at the clubhouse, Rosa, who had extensive knowledge of gang tattoos and prison ink, studied the photo. "This isn't gang-related. This looks like custom work, probably done at a specific shop. The style is distinctive. See the way the skull's eyes are drawn? That's the signature of a tattoo artist who used to work at a shop in Riverside called Ink Demons." "Used to work there?" Bear asked. "Yeah, he got fired about a year ago. Guy named Travis something. He was doing tattoos on the side, underage kids, some sketchy stuff. The shop owner kicked him out," Rosa said. Carlos was already on his laptop. "Travis Calhoun, arrested twice for drug possession, once for assault. Last known address is an apartment complex in Rubidoux." "Let's go," Bear said. 6 bikers rolled out immediately. They reached the apartment complex in Rubidoux, a run-down building with peeling paint and bars on the windows. Travis Calhoun's apartment was on the 2nd floor. Bear knocked on the door. Hard. No answer. He knocked again. "Travis Calhoun! Open up!" A neighbor poked her head out. "He's not there. Haven't seen him in days." "You know where he might be?" Carlos asked. The neighbor, an older woman with sharp eyes, looked the bikers up and down. "You cops?" "No, ma'am," Bear said. "We're looking for a missing girl. We think Travis might know something." The woman's expression softened. "I saw that Amber Alert. Terrible thing. Travis is a creep. Wouldn't surprise me if he was involved in something like that. He used to have people coming and going at all hours. I heard him mention a place out in the desert once, some kind of property where he worked on cars or something." "Where in the desert?" Bear asked. "Don't know exactly. Somewhere past Beaumont, I think." "That's all I heard," she said. Bear pulled out a $100 bill. "If you remember anything else, you call this number." He handed her his card. The woman took both, nodding. "Find that girl, and if Travis is involved, you make sure he gets what's coming to him." The bikers regrouped. "The desert past Beaumont covers a lot of ground," Jake said. "We need to narrow it down." Danny, who'd been quiet, spoke up. "Wait, if Travis was doing illegal tattoos and sketchy stuff, he'd need a place that's isolated but still has utilities. And if he's working on cars, he'd need space and power. We should check for recent utility turn-ons at rural properties in that area." "How do we do that?" Carlos asked. Danny grinned. "I have a friend who works for the power company. Owes me a favor." 2 hours later, Danny had a list of 7 properties in the desert near Beaumont where electricity had been turned on within the past month after being off for years. These were abandoned or rarely used properties now suddenly active. "We need to check all 7, Bear said. "But we can't just go charging in. If they have Emma and they see us coming, they might hurt her or run." "We need reconnaissance first," Carlos said, "quiet and careful." Bear divided the bikers into 7 teams, 2 or 3 riders each. "You're not going in. You're just looking. If you find anything suspicious, you call me immediately. We coordinate with the police on the rescue. Nobody plays hero and gets the girl hurt. Understood?" Everyone nodded. As they prepared to leave, Bear got a call from Maria. "Bear, the police found something." The van was spotted on a traffic camera heading east on Highway 60 toward Beaumont the night Emma was taken. "That confirms it," Bear said. "We're going out there now. I'll keep you updated." The sun was setting as 7 teams of bikers headed into the desert, each team with a specific property to investigate. The desert around Beaumont was a harsh landscape of scrub brush, rocks, and heat. Properties were spread far apart, connected by dirt roads, perfect for hiding someone. Bear, Carlos, and Jake took the most promising location, an old service station that had been closed for years, now apparently reactivated. They parked their bikes a mile away and approached on foot as darkness fell. The service station was isolated, surrounded by nothing but desert. A single light glowed inside, and parked behind the building, partially covered with a tarp, was a grey Dodge Caravan with a dent on the side. Bear felt his pulse quicken. "That's it. That's the van." Carlos pulled out binoculars and scanned the building. "I see movement inside, at least 2, maybe 3 people." "We need to call this in," Jake said, pulling out his phone. But before he could dial, they heard it. A scream. A young girl's scream, abruptly cut off. Bear and his brothers exchanged glances. They all knew they should wait for police. They all knew charging in could go wrong in 100 ways. But that was a child screaming. "Forget protocol," Bear said. "We're going in. Jake, you call the cops. Tell them we have the location and we're extracting the victim. Carlos, with me." Bear and Carlos moved quickly and quietly across the desert scrub toward the old service station. Jake stayed back, calling Detective Harrison and giving him the location while keeping watch. The building was a squat, single-story structure with broken windows now boarded up and a rusted garage bay. As they got closer, they could hear voices inside. Male voices arguing. "Told you we should have left already," one voice said. "And go where? We need to wait for the buyer," another voice responded. "The buyer might not even show up. That Amber Alert has every cop in the county looking." Bear and Carlos pressed themselves against the outside wall, listening. Carlos pointed to a side door that stood slightly ajar. They could see light spilling out from inside. "We need to see how many we're dealing with and where the girl is," Bear whispered. Carlos nodded and carefully peered through a crack in the boarded window. He held up 3 fingers, then pointed to different areas inside. 3 men. He then made a gesture indicating someone sitting down, Emma probably tied up. Bear knew they were taking a huge risk. These men might be armed. Someone could get hurt, including Emma. But waiting wasn't an option anymore, not after hearing that scream. He signaled to Carlos, "Distraction and entry." Carlos nodded, understanding the plan. Carlos moved to the front of the building and suddenly slammed his fist against the metal garage door, creating a massive bang. "Police, open up!" Inside, chaos erupted. "What the hell? Out the back! Get the girl!" That's when Bear kicked in the side door and charged inside. The interior of the service station was dimly lit by camping lanterns. 3 men spun toward the sudden intrusion. Bear recognized Travis Calhoun from his mugshot. The other 2 were strangers, one heavy-set with a shaved head, the other thin and wiry with wild eyes. And there, tied to a chair in the corner, was Emma Martinez. She had duct tape over her mouth, her eyes wide with terror, but she was alive. "Nobody move!" Bear roared, his voice filling the space with authority. He was unarmed. Carrying a weapon would have violated his parole, but his size and presence were weapons enough. The heavy-set man reached for something behind him. Jake suddenly appeared in the doorway behind Bear, having run up when he heard the commotion. "Seriously, man, there's 3 more of us outside, and cops are 2 minutes away. You really want to do this?" The man hesitated. In that moment of indecision, Carlos burst through a back window, landing in a crouch between the men and Emma. "It's over," Bear said firmly. "You're done. The only question now is whether you're done the easy way or the hard way." Travis Calhoun suddenly bolted for the front door. He made it 3 steps before Jake stuck out his leg, sending Travis sprawling face first onto the concrete floor. Jake sat on him. "Nope." The thin man with wild eyes pulled a knife. "Back off, I swear I'll—" "You'll what?" Carlos said, stepping forward. "You think we're afraid of a knife? Brother, I had people shooting at me in Fallujah. You're just a punk with a blade." Outside, sirens wailed in the distance, getting closer. The thin man's hand shook. He looked at his two captured companions, then at Emma, then at the bikers who'd somehow materialized out of the desert like avenging angels. He dropped the knife and put his hands up. "Smart choice," Bear said. He moved quickly to Emma, carefully removing the duct tape from her mouth. "It's okay, Emma. I'm Bear. Your brother sent me. You're safe now," Bear said gently. Emma burst into tears. "I want my mum." "You're going to see her real soon," Bear said, working on the ropes binding her hands. "You're so brave. You did so good, kid." The heavy-set man made one last desperate attempt, lunging toward the door. Carlos stepped into his path and delivered a single, precise punch to the man's solar plexus. The man crumpled, gasping for air. "Stay down," Carlos said mildly. Police cars skidded to a stop outside, their lights painting the desert in flashing red and blue. Detective Harrison rushed in with 4 other officers, guns drawn. "Hands up! Everyone on the ground!" Harrison shouted. "The 3 on the left are yours, Detective," Bear said calmly, stepping away from Emma with his hands visible. "The girl is safe. We didn't touch the evidence. The van out back should have DNA and prints. You'll probably find planning materials for trafficking. That's what they were talking about when we got here." Harrison looked at Bear, at the 3 suspects now being handcuffed by his officers, and at Emma being carefully led out by a female officer. "You could have gotten everyone killed charging in here." "Could have," Bear agreed. "But we didn't, and that girl is going home to her mother." Harrison wanted to be angry, wanted to lecture these bikers about vigilante justice and proper procedure, but he looked at Emma, traumatized but alive, and he couldn't find the words. "We're going to need statements from all of you," Harrison finally said. "We'll cooperate fully," Bear said, "but first, can we take Emma home? Her mum has been through hell." Harrison hesitated, then nodded. "Take her, but I need you at the station tomorrow morning. All of you." "We'll be there," Bear promised. The female officer who'd been comforting Emma brought her to Bear. "She says she wants to ride with you." Emma looked up at Bear with tear-stained eyes. "Please, I don't want to be in a car. I want to be outside where I can see everything." Bear looked at Harrison, who sighed and nodded. "Slow and safely. Her mother will have my badge if anything happens to her." Bear had Carlos bring up his bike. It had a comfortable rear seat, and Carlos was the smoothest rider in the club. They wrapped Emma in Carlos's leather jacket, placed her behind him, and told her to hold on tight. "We're going home, kid," Carlos said gently. "Your mum and brother are waiting." The ride back to Moreno Valley took 45 minutes. 6 police cars followed the bikers, an unusual escort. As they rode through the desert night, Emma gradually stopped crying. She held on to Carlos, feeling the wind and the freedom, the nightmare finally ending. When they turned onto her street, Emma saw something that made her cry again, but this time with relief and joy. The entire neighborhood was lined with people. Word had spread that Emma was coming home. Neighbors stood on their lawns with signs that said, "Welcome home, Emma." The local church had brought candles, and standing in the middle of the street, unable to wait even one more second, was Maria Martinez, with Tommy clutching her hand. Carlos stopped the bike. Emma practically fell off, running into her mother's arms. Maria collapsed to her knees, holding her daughter, sobbing so hard no words would come. Tommy wrapped his arms around both his mother and sister. "You're home. You're home," he kept saying. The bikers had stopped their engines, watching the reunion in respectful silence. Other bikers who'd been searching had arrived, forming a protective circle around the family. The neighbors applauded and cheered. Finally, Maria looked up at the bikers. She walked toward Bear, Emma still clutching her hand, and looked up at this huge man who'd brought her daughter home. "How do I thank you?" Maria asked, her voice breaking. "You just did," Bear said simply. "Take care of your family, Mrs. Martinez. That's all the thanks we need." Emma pulled away from her mother and walked up to Bear. Without a word, she hugged him as tightly as an exhausted 12-year-old could hug a man 3 times her size. Bear, tough as nails and harder to crack, felt his own eyes water. He gently patted Emma's back. "You're strong, kid. Don't forget that." Emma pulled back and looked at all the bikers. "Thank you, all of you. You saved my life." Danny stepped forward and knelt down to Emma's level. "Your little brother saved your life. He was brave enough to ask for help. You've got a good brother." Emma turned to Tommy and hugged him too. "You really got the bikers to help?" Tommy nodded, trying not to cry, because he wanted to be tough like the bikers, but failing completely. "I didn't know what else to do. I was so scared, Emma." "Me too," Emma admitted. "But we're okay now." Detective Harrison had arrived and was conducting preliminary interviews with the suspects at the scene. He'd called Maria to let her know that all 3 men were in custody. They were being charged with kidnapping, conspiracy to commit human trafficking, and several other felonies. The evidence in the service station indicated they'd been planning to sell Emma to a trafficking ring operating in Nevada. "If those bikers hadn't found her tonight," Harrison told Maria quietly, "she would have been taken out of state tomorrow. We might never have found her." Maria felt sick thinking about it. She pulled both her children close. Over the next few hours, the police took statements. The bikers cooperated fully, explaining their investigation and the confrontation at the service station. While they'd technically interfered with an official investigation and the physical confrontation was legally questionable, Detective Harrison and the district attorney ultimately decided not to press charges against the road warriors. They'd saved a child's life, and the evidence they'd uncovered would put 3 dangerous criminals in prison for decades. At 2 a.m., everyone had finally left except for Bear, Carlos, and Jake. They sat on Maria's front porch with her, drinking coffee, while Emma and Tommy slept inside, finally feeling safe. "I still don't understand why you did this," Maria said. "You don't know us. You had no obligation." Bear was quiet for a moment. "When I came back from Iraq, I had a hard time adjusting. I felt lost, angry. I did some things I'm not proud of. The road warriors gave me purpose again. They gave me brothers. We live by a code. Protect those who can't protect themselves. Your son came to us asking for help, and we don't turn away from kids in need. Simple as that. Plus," Carlos added with a small smile, "we really don't like child predators. Like at all. Word gets around the prison system about what happened to those 3. They're going to have a very difficult time inside." Maria understood the implication and couldn't find it in herself to feel sorry for the men who'd taken her daughter. "What happens now?" Maria asked. "Now you heal," Jake said. "Emma's going to need therapy, probably for a long time. You might too. Tommy definitely needs to talk to someone about what he went through. Don't try to just push through this and pretend everything is back to normal." "I can't afford," Maria began. "We have contacts with therapists who specialize in trauma, particularly child trauma," Bear interrupted. "Some of them work with veteran families and offer reduced rates or sliding scales. We'll make sure you get connected with someone good." Maria's eyes filled with tears again. "I don't know how I'll ever repay you." "You don't have to," Bear said firmly. "But if you want to do something, when Emma's ready, maybe she'd like to share her story. Human trafficking is a huge problem, especially in Southern California. If she's comfortable talking about it, her story might help other families recognize the warning signs and protect their own kids." Maria nodded. "I think she'd want to do that. She's strong, like you said." As the sun began to rise over Moreno Valley, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink, the bikers finally prepared to leave. They mounted their motorcycles and started the engines, that familiar rumble filling the quiet morning air. Tommy had woken up and came outside to watch them leave. Bear saw him and waved him over. "Hey, little man," Bear said. "Are you leaving?" Tommy asked. "Yeah, we've got to get going, but you have my number. You ever need anything, you call. And when you're older, if you want to learn how to ride, you come find me," Bear said. Tommy nodded seriously. "I will. Can I ask you something?" "Sure." "Are you guys like superheroes?" Tommy asked. Bear laughed, the first real laugh he'd had in days. "No, son, we're just people who try to do right when we can. The real superhero is you. You didn't freeze up, you didn't give up. You found help and you saved your sister. Don't ever forget that." "I won't," Tommy promised. The bikers rode away as the neighborhood woke up to a new day. Behind them, the Martinez family stood together on their front porch, arms around each other, finally whole again. 2 weeks later, Tommy was sitting in his classroom when his teacher announced they had special guests. Bear, Carlos, and Danny walked into the classroom wearing their cuts. They'd been invited to talk about stranger danger and what to do if you see something suspicious. After the presentation, Tommy raised his hand. "Can I say something?" The teacher nodded. Tommy stood up. "These guys saved my sister. They didn't have to, but they did. My dad's in the army and he's a hero too, but heroes aren't always soldiers or police officers. Sometimes heroes are bikers who help a scared kid." The class applauded. Bear looked uncomfortable with the praise, but accepted it with grace. After class, Tommy walked out with the bikers. "My dad called yesterday. He's coming home early. The army gave him emergency leave." "That's great news," Bear said. "He wants to meet you," Tommy said. "All of you." "We'd be honored," Bear said. A month later, the Martinez family hosted a barbecue at their house. Daniel Martinez, Emma's and Tommy's father, was home. He was a tall, lean man with close-cropped hair and the bearing of a soldier, but his eyes were warm as he greeted the bikers who'd saved his daughter. "I've been overseas trying to protect people I've never met," Daniel said to Bear, shaking his hand firmly. "While you were here protecting what matters most to me, there aren't words adequate enough to thank you. You serve your country, Sergeant Martinez. We just did what needed doing," Bear said. The backyard filled with bikers, neighbors, and friends. Emma was still in therapy, but was doing better each day. She'd started going to a support group for trafficking survivors and was even talking about becoming an advocate when she was older. Tommy spent the afternoon following the bikers around, asking questions about their motorcycles, their military service, and their lives. He'd become something of a mascot for the Road Warriors, and they'd voted to give him an honorary membership when he turned 18 if he wanted it. As the sun set and the party wound down, Maria pulled Bear aside. "I need to tell you something," she said. "The DA called today. The 3 men are taking plea deals. They're going away for 30 years minimum. They're also giving information about the trafficking ring they were part of. The FBI thinks they can save other children because of this case." "That's good," Bear said. "Very good. And there's something else," Maria continued. "I got a call from a television producer. They want to do a story about what happened, about how a little boy asked bikers for help and how you all came together to save Emma. I told them I'd think about it." "What does Emma think?" Bear asked. "She wants to do it. She says if her story can help even one other kid, it's worth telling," Maria said. "Then you should do it," Bear said. "But on your terms. Make sure they tell it right." Maria nodded. "Will you participate? They want to interview you." Bear hesitated. The Road Warriors generally stayed out of the spotlight. But he thought about all the children who could be protected if people understood the warning signs. If families knew, they could ask anyone for help, even people who looked different or intimidating. "Yeah," Bear said finally, "we'll do it. For Emma, and for all the other kids out there who need help." 3 months later, the story aired on national television. It became one of the most watched episodes of the series, and the response was overwhelming. Donations poured in for anti-trafficking organizations. Police departments around the country reported increases in tips about suspicious vehicles and activities, and motorcycle clubs nationwide started organizing their own child protection initiatives, inspired by the Road Warriors. The Martinez family received thousands of letters from people who'd been moved by their story. Emma started speaking at schools about safety and trusting your instincts. Tommy became an advocate for community cooperation, talking about how it takes everyone working together to keep children safe. As for the Road Warriors MC, they continued their work, now with a heightened focus on child protection. They established a hotline for reports of suspicious activity, coordinated with law enforcement more closely, and became known as much for their community service as for their motorcycles. Bear kept a photo in his wallet from that barbecue at the Martinez house. It showed Emma, Tommy, and him standing together, all smiling. On the back, Emma had written, "To Bear and the Road Warriors, my heroes. Thank you for showing me that help can come from anywhere, even the most unexpected places. With love and gratitude, Emma." He'd look at that photo whenever he needed a reminder of why the work mattered, why he and his brothers kept riding the streets, keeping watch, protecting the innocent. Because at the end of the day, that's what heroes did. And sometimes heroes wore leather and rode motorcycles. Sometimes heroes were just people who answered the desperate plea of a little boy crying, "They took my sister." And they answered with determination, with courage, and with a promise. "We will bring her home." A promise they kept. The end author's note. This story is a work of fiction designed to highlight several important themes. Community cooperation. Safety is everyone's responsibility. People from all walks of life can contribute to protecting children. Judging fairly, don't judge people by appearance. The bikers in this story defied stereotypes through their actions. Child safety awareness. Parents and children should discuss stranger danger, suspicious vehicles, and the importance of staying in groups. Multiple support systems. Official channels like police are crucial, but community resources can complement those efforts. Trauma recovery. The story acknowledges that rescue is just the beginning. Emma and her family need ongoing therapy and support. Courage comes in all sizes. Tommy's bravery in asking for help was just as important as the physical rescue. If you or someone you know has experienced trafficking or exploitation, please contact the National Human Trafficking Hotline, 1-888-373-7888, or text 23T733. Remember, it takes a village to protect our children. We all have a role to play in keeping our communities safe.